About 5 years ago, I lived downtown in a major city in the United States. I've always been a night person, so I would often find myself bored without my roommate, who was decidedly not a night person, who went to sleep. To pass the time, I used to go for long walks and spend the time thinking. I spent 4 years like that, walking alone at night, and never once had a reason to feel afraid. I always used to joke with my roommate that even the drug dealers in the city were polite. But all of that changed in just a few minutes of one evening. It was a Wednesday, somewhere between 1 and 2 in the morning, and I was walking near a police-patrolled park quite a ways from my apartment. It was a quiet night even for a weeknight, with very little traffic and almost no one on foot. The park, as it was most nights, was completely empty. I turned down a short side street in order to loop back to my apartment when I first noticed him. At the far end of the street on my side was a silhouette of a man, dancing. It was a strange dance, similar to a waltz, but he finished each box with an odd forward stride. I guess you could say he was dance-walking, headed straight for me. Deciding he was probably drunk, I stepped as close as I could to the road to give him the majority of the sidewalk to pass me by. The closer he got, the more I realized how gracefully he was moving. He was very tall and lanky and wearing an old suit. He danced closer still, till I could make out his face. His eyes were wide open and wild, head tilted back slightly, looking off at the sky. His mouth was formed in a painfully wide cartoon of a smile. Between the eyes and the smile, I decided to cross the street before he danced any closer. I took my eyes off of him to cross the empty street. As I reached the other side, I glanced back, and then stopped dead in my tracks. He had stopped dancing and was standing, with one foot in the street, perfectly parallel to me. He was facing me, but still looking skyward, smile still wide on his lips. I was completely and utterly unnerved by this. I started walking again, but kept my eyes on the man. He didn't move. Once I had put about half a block between us, I turned away from him for a moment to watch the sidewalk in front of me. The street and sidewalk ahead of me were completely empty. Still unnerved, I looked back to where he had been standing to find him gone. For the briefest of moments, I felt relieved, until I noticed him. He had crossed the street and was now slightly crouched down. I couldn't tell for sure due to the distance and the shadows, but I was certain he was facing me. I had looked away from him for no more than 10 seconds, so it was clear that he had moved fast. I was so shocked that I stood there for some time staring at him. And then he started moving towards me again. He took giant, exaggerated tiptoed steps, as if he were a cartoon character sneaking up on someone, except he was moving very, very quickly. I'd like to say at this point I ran away, or pulled out my pepper spray, or my cell phone, or anything at all, but I didn't. I just stood there completely frozen as this smiling man crept towards me. And then he stopped again, about a car length away from me, still smiling, still looking to the sky. When I finally found my voice, I blurted out the first thing that came to mind. What I meant to ask was, "What do you want?" in an angry, commanding tone. What it came out, though, was a whimper. What? Regardless of whether or not humans can smell fear, they can certainly hear it. I heard it in my own voice, and that only made me more afraid. But he didn't react to it at all. He just stood there, smiling. And then after what felt like forever, he turned around, very slowly, and started dance-walking away. Just like that. Not wanting to turn my back to him again, I just watched him go, until he was far enough away to almost be out of sight. And then I realized something. He wasn't moving away anymore, nor was he dancing. I watched in horror as the distant shape of him grew larger and larger. He was coming back my way, and this time he was running. I ran too. I ran until I was off of the side road and back into a better lit road with sparse traffic. Looking behind me, he was nowhere to be found. The rest of the way home, I kept glancing over my shoulder, always expecting to see his stupid smile, but he was never there. I lived in that city for 6 months after that night, and I never went out for another walk. There was something about his face that just... In fact, there's something about a face that always haunts me. He didn't look drunk. He didn't look high at all either. He looked completely and utterly fucking insane. And that's a very, very scary thing to see. Well, this one is a pretty popular creepypasta originating from Reddit. The tale itself is not too long, but it's got some impressive build-up, I'll be honest here. It sets the tone well, and when you get to the end, this is one bastard I do not want to see at night. Now, I can really relate to this creepypasta, and I'm going to focus on how the relation really works right now. The story, pretty self-explanatory. We know the guy's walking alone at night, and he comes across a weirdo who chases him. What happens after that, who really knows? It didn't end in an unbelievable way. The guy got chased by some really fucking weird dude. Now, I can relate because I myself am a night owl. Even today, back then, as long as I can really remember, I spend my days resting, in the morning, and then, waking up around afternoonish, easing into my work schedule in the evening, and then I work throughout the night. Now, it's normal for a large amount of people in the world, being a night owl. Nowadays, it's kind of weird. Sometimes I'll shift between the night owl to the early bird throughout the week. But back then, when I was a night owl, constantly, I would always take walks outside, like this person would be. In fact, especially if it was raining or there was such a heavy amount of fog. I love heavy fog. I know some people are scared of it. I don't know. I like the Silent Hill vibe that I get from walking in the fog. But that being said, I can relate totally walking outside. And I've run into my fair share of odd people. In fact, one time somebody just came up to me and gave me a giant, hug. For an awkward 5 minutes, literally 5 minutes. And I hugged him back. Now, could I have been stabbed? Absolutely. Could he have spread some anthrax type shit? Now we got those tinfoil hats. But so, as far as this creepypasta goes, I think why it's really, really scary is because... why it's so real, why it actually does send a shiver down my spine, because when I was first reading it, I did feel a shiver down my spine. It never gives any irrational detail, and it stays on point. It's focused, and it focuses on some wandering weirdo, which, let's be honest, again, is a very real predicament. I mean, if you take a while, if you put yourself into these shoes, if you've been in these shoes, you know what this character is talking about. This is not out of the realm of reality. Shit, in Toronto I've seen it. In fact, a couple of times when I go to work out in Los Angeles, I've seen some weirdos. Smiling weirdos, so that's a fact that they do actually exist in the smiling variant. Now, did I ever get, chased? Did somebody run after me? Did the silhouette get larger? No. And thank God, no. It scares me, to be honest, because who knows what you'll find. It's so grounded in reality. I mean, who runs after you, right? I mean, what if this guy never ran into a public sphere? Then he'd be screwed. Now, let's be honest, how likely is this going to happen? That depends. I'm not here to scaremonger you. Don't be scared of some random dude walking out in the street. They're just like you, okay? They're just like anybody. Just be totally calm about it. But the fact is, it is real. And ultimately, that's what makes this creepypasta scary. And hey, if I was reading this on a Reddit no sleep or whatever, I'd be kind of worried about the next time I take a walk outside. But that being said, this has been another episode of Creepypastas, and if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike it if you dislike it, and let me know how many weirdos you've come across taking a walk outside. This is me, Mudahar, and I am out.